Welcome to Getting Made. Today I'm talking with George and Teddy Kunhardt. You can see their incredible films, Jim, Fragments of Paradise, Becoming Katharine Graham, and Living with Lincoln by following the Kunhardt Film Foundation and Life Stories. Real quick, a thank you to this episode's sponsors, Nature's Wildberry. Turn sour sweet. If you've got a sweet tooth and you're interested in maintaining a healthy lifestyle, take a look at Nature's Wildberry. You can see them on socials or search for their Shark Tank episode or visit natureswildberry.com. Jaybird Coffee. If you love coffee and supporting independent film, pick up some delicious chocolate truffle coffee at jaybirdcoffee.com. Airwolf Drones. Be it commercials, feature films, or live broadcast, Airwolf Drones has you covered from the air. Check out airwolfdrones.com. And now, a conversation with George and Teddy Kunhardt. Thank you guys so much for taking the time. It really means a lot to me. I've been a long time admirer of y'all's work. I know how difficult it is to make a really good documentary, a really good film. It's really hard to make a film, and to make a good film is like insanely difficult. So you guys have been doing it on the regular, and I got tons of questions for you. So
Love it, Rob. Thank you for having us.
my pleasure. So I first became aware of y'all's work on Jim. I came across that film at Sundance, and I was just blown away by the power of that. Um, how did that come about? How did you guys get involved in that? And like, it's such a strong, iconic image of Jim's passing, and yet his story was just sort of glanced over until you guys picked it up and ran with it and explained everything that happened. So how did that come about?
Here, Tay, I'll start with this one. Well, we were actually editing and finishing productions of our documentary called Living with Lincoln for HBO.
Yeah.
And that project was co-directed by our father, Peter Kunhardt, and Brian Oakes. And I remember sitting in the edit room at Brian's studio down in Brooklyn, and Brian came in abnormally late. He's always on time for these kind of things, and looked very despondent, very sad, didn't talk much. And he sat down at his computer, and he about an hour later, turned to myself and another producer, another teammate, said, the man that was in the orange jumpsuit that was killed, beheaded by ISIS, was my childhood best friend. And it just shook us. And he told me, Peter and Teddy, the story of their childhood. He told us all about their friendship, their the love of each other. And he said, and it didn't leave, just left it at that. And Brian had taken our Living with Lincoln film from being, in our minds, a very traditional doc to one of the most imaginative, dynamic, thoughtful, creative films ever. So we're indebted to Brian. And we thought, how can we repay the favor? And we said, the three of us turned to each other and said, why don't we ask Brian if he would like to, if we backed him to do a documentary about his friend Jim. We knew there's an amazing story there. We recognized that whatever Brian puts his heart and soul and attention to is going to be amazing. He's one of the most creative people we've ever met. And went right from our Living with Lincoln film into production on Jim. It was about a year production, and it was one of the most
Well, I'll step back for 1 second, which is we we took it to HBO and we said we have access. The family's behind this film. Brian's going to direct it, and HBO actually said no.
Hmm.
And we were in a position where we'd already committed to the family. We committed to Brian, so we had to put up the money,
Hmm.
which was something that George and I and our father have a pretty stiff rule that we don't do, but we believe so much in this story that we fundraised and we put in our own money to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, George. Sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, no, it's great. And so the film went down, we were in production, and it was an amazing process. I mean, between the family stories, the family archival, the access that Don and John, Diane and John Foley provided us with, and the rest of his family members. I mean, it's a very intimate portrait of Jim, but they also opened the door to access to some of the hostages that were held captive with Jim. So a small team, we all flew out, filmed in Barcelona, filmed in outside of Saint-Germain-en-Laye in outside of France, and it was the first time many of these formerly held hostages had ever spoken uh, to someone on camera. And it was also the first time Brian had ever directed a feature doc. So
Hmm.
it's a very kind of light trial by fire, learning on the spot for a lot of people in this process. And I
But
think,
one of the things, George, though, is the reason that the hostages were able to open up was this was Jim's best friend.
Hmm.
This was not a newscaster
Right.
trying to tell the story of being in
Jen,
isolation and in captivity. It was Brian was able to give details of his friendship with Jim, which they were able to connect with. So I
Mhm.
think that's what when George says that we were able to speak to these guys,
yeah,
it was in a different capacity than they had spoken to before.
yeah. What I was getting to is that Brian, being a first-time director in this capacity, I think was a disarming for them too, in a way that they didn't feel like they were talking to a director or producer who's been doing this for 50 years that has a specific angle. Brian just wanted to get to learn about his best friend and what happened and his conditions and all this material. So that friendship is what opened the doors to something that we've never experienced. And it was a powerful film. I mean, it's one of the best things I think that our production company's ever come out of, but we're very proud of that one.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being so incredibly moved, and I reached out to Brian a couple of times, and I asked him if I could play it because I was teaching a couple years back, and I showed it to the students, and they were just like blown away by it, and it's incredible that these stories of like captivity, how incredibly potent they can become. It's like if you look at all the great stories of like suffering, whether it be like Viktor Frankl, Solzhenitsyn, Dostoevsky, all these people, they're held in captivity. And I felt like it was just a amazing piece to demonstrate just the amount of pressure that Jim was under and I guess the opportunity for him to demonstrate his character. It was very moving. You guys knocked that out of the park. It was a great tribute to him. Tremendous. Um, I'm so interested by y'all's story as a family because you work together. I work with my brother, but he's in a totally different field. Um, but how was it like working with your brother and working with your father, and how's that like as a dynamic?
Hmm. You want that, Dante? I'll either
And
way.
most days it's great. I would say 93% of the time we all see in the same direction. We all have the same ethics, the same focus, the same direction of where the film is going to go. And then there's that 7% that that's usually between me and my father, and then George is the broker that pieces it together.
That's good.
But no, it's great, Rob. It's fun because our father, he's the GOAT. I mean, he's the best in our opinion. And it's funny, I was actually just talking about this with someone yesterday. Growing up, you have a love for your father. I love my dad. I look up to him. I admire him. As a child, I didn't understand how great of a producer he was. You don't really you just know he makes these at that point Lincoln documentaries. People know him. But when you get older and you get into the business and you see the true genius that he is, it's a pretty amazing experience as you kind of evolve as a person and as a producer. So Teddy and I are very lucky that he's shaped us as the producers that we are from that guidance. But we it's a
But
unique.
he's taught us some very valuable lessons for filmmaking that we can talk about right now, which is number one and most important is to be truthful.
Mm.
But the second part is when you feed your crew well.
Yes, yeah,
We
yeah.
always make sure that the crew is fed well. We go out to dinner with them. We would we treat the crew as one of us,
Mhm.
and that goes a long way because it means we get the best people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you know, there's lots of lessons we can go through, but those are the two
Well,
that
the other big one. I don't know if we can curse on this, but
Go for it. Do your thing.
we have a no asshole rule.
Yeah, oh, 100%.
And we've worked and I'm sure you have with assholes down the past, and we try and filter that out. We try and work with people we like, people we care about, people we respect. We work with some of the best in the business, and it's important to us that everyone carries their weight and everyone puts it all in, but everyone has fun and there's no jerks. It's a which we all know there are.
And trust. I
Yeah.
mean, we're not into the type of documentary filmmaking where we burn people.
Right.
We're not going to do gotcha journalism. That's not us. I we liked watching it. I mean,
Hmm.
some of the other well-known directors that do that stuff, it's entertaining to watch and we like it, but we don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, our philosophy is that you're only as good as your last film, and we strive to do the best projects one by one at a time. We take longer than I think most production companies take to make a doc, but we do it on purpose. We really put it all on the table. We from the time to decide what project we're going to do to the research process during the pre-production phase, the interviews and everything that goes into the actual physical production, to the staffing and the makeup of our team,
Hmm.
to the post-production, to the marketing, distribution, release. I mean, but then what we're most proud of, and I'm sure we'll spend some time on today, is that in 2018, so for years, I'll kind of give you a little history because I think it's actually pretty interesting.
Okay.
So Teddy and I joined our father about almost 20 years ago at what was then called Kunhardt Productions, now
Hmm.
changed into Kunhardt Films. Prior to that, Peter, our father, was at ABC as Barbara Walters' senior producer for 10 years. He then started the organization and we joined him. Fast forward to where we get to, and we've done almost 40 documentaries as a team and done a lot of things from Apple to PBS to HBO to other distribution platforms. But in 2018, we recognized that the industry is changing and there's a lot going on, as you, I'm sure, see, feel, know. It's very hard to get your things distributed. It's very hard to get things greenlit and produced.
Hmm.
We were very fortunate that we secured some funding and we created a organization, a nonprofit called the Kunhardt Film Foundation,
Hmm.
that's now doing business as an organization called Life Stories. That's our nonprofit production company. And out of Life Stories, our mission is to preserve and tell moral leadership, moral life stories, both in film and interviews, and create educational curriculum and content around it and put it out there for free to the public.
Hmm.
And our core belief is that these stories that we tell, that everyone should have access to it. There's so many different things out there, ways to, we've had countless experience where we pitch docs or pitch ideas and we're told, no, we're not interested in history. No, we're not interested in that
Yeah.
subject matter.
Yeah.
And some of those films have become some of the most powerful things we've ever produced. And that's kind of what keeps us going. That's what makes us excited every day to wake up to tell these stories and get these out there because
Yeah.
that's honestly what's so important. That's what's missing right now is core, thoughtful, truth-telling stories and in an emotional, passionate way. And that's what we try to bring to each of our films when we do them.
Man, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I just feel like there's there needs to be a massive return to that. I love that your all's films have this reoccurring theme of you focus on an individual who's endured tremendous hardship. You know, they face it, they overcome, and then, you know, you see the ripple effect that that person has, whether it be Catherine Graham or Jonas Mekas or whoever. But it's just like these all these people, they're beacons of how to live in a way, right? How to endure tremendous hardship and overcome. And I just think that's so imperative. And I guess the question I have for you is, you guys come from this rich history of you know, archivists with Living with Lincoln and storytellers. How and I'm the only reason I'm asking this is because like you guys are outside of my bubble, and so I only know how we perceive things within my bubble, but there is a tremendous discouraged atmosphere about the proliferance and like the overwhelming sea of AI generated content that could potentially drown out truth and history, like actual history. It's like if there's a bunch of rewriting of history with a bunch of, you know, for lack of a better term, knockoffs. Is this something you guys even think about, or you guys just like we're just focused on like let the truth defend itself. We're just going to focus on our own little thing and make our true stories and let it do its, pan out however it's going to pan out? Or is this something that you guys are going to actively combat? I don't
No,
understand it, like,
it, it's a great question because it is something we are grappling with.
okay.
So what when it comes to the film itself, we're just going to put blinders on and make the best film possible, and we're not going to use. When I say not use AI, we use AI when the colorist goes in and colors something. She might use AI, or the mixer might use AI. I don't know what tools
Uh,
they use.
Transcriptions today
But
we
but as
oh
far
yeah.
as like fake video or fake audio, no, we'll never touch that.
Yeah.
But but we keep all the metadata for the interviews.
Hmm.
And I believe we have all geolocations and we
Hmm.
keep all that information. And what we're trying to figure out now is when we populate an interview on our website,
Hmm.
how we can quote unquote prove or have a record that this is the actual
Real deal.
real deal.
Hmm.
So we are trying to stay ahead of it because
Hmm.
you're right. There's going to be uh, a million fake things out there, and what's the truth?
Hmm.
And we want you, the viewer, to be able to come to our site and know that this is actually from the lens of our camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. I think that, I think about it in two different ways. One, my instinctual reaction is to be like, oh, you should combat that. And then the other thought process is like, corrupt things always eat themselves. They always destroy themselves. So just don't even worry about it. Let it destroy itself. And that's why I wanted to ask you about that because I was struggling with it myself and I was like, I'm not quite sure how to handle this.
Look, I think there's some good in AI in the sense that like when I draft an email, it's and I know it's an important email. I'll throw it into to Chat GPT and say, edit this for grammatical and spelling errors, and it spits out something that I might not have caught.
Hmm.
But but I hear there is more downside than upside.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I was just thinking more along the lines of like, you know, you guys are making actually a large amount of films. Typically, what happens is like as the quantity goes up, the quality goes down, but you guys have maintained quality with quantity, which is incredible. But I know that there's going to be an outpouring of quantity, as these generations become more, you know, problematic or they begin to overrun, work day and night basically to generate whatever version of history they so choose. And I just think that it's like, how do we, you know, how do we maintain a level of accuracy, But I like what you guys are doing. I think that's so imperative is like document, make sure that it's well documented and then let history and let truth sort of defend itself. It's really good.
Look, it's interesting you say this too, Rob, because when we did our Kay Graham film, you'll hear in the film, I'm sure you saw, but that a lot of it's used, portions are from her audiobook and
Mm.
and from her recording of her audiobook. And one distributor came back to us and said, "We love the film, it's amazing. Uh, why did you use AI for the voice?" And we said, "That's not AI, that's her audiobook." They said,
Wow.
"Oh, well, we're so accustomed to hearing AI. Why don't you put a logo saying this is not AI? This is her." We're not disclaiming that we're not, that's
Right,
ridiculous.
right.
You should trust that what we're telling you is the truth, and you should understand that we set up that she's writing an audiobook. We've made this clear. We're not going to identify every time we have an audiobook that this is her real voice. Like
Yes.
that's what this is coming to in documentaries. That's a scary world, in my opinion. That
Well, look, Morgan Neville in the Anthony Bourdain used that one little piece of AI voice to read a letter that Tony wrote, and that I feel I'm sure in hindsight he wishes he didn't do it because
Mm.
it took the focus off the film. The film was an amazing film,
Hmm.
and all everyone talks about is this 30-second clip that used AI to read one of his letters,
Right.
and it's just a bummer.
Yeah.
But it goes back to George's like, why do we have to defend that we're using Catherine's real voice from an audiobook? It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's funny because all right, use that same argument. If we did Jim, when you go back to Jim Foley, should we have identified that it was recreation of what it was like in an ISIS cell? I think people
Right.
understand that this is dramatic. It's where do you just make that distinction now? It's getting
Yeah,
kind
but
of
then as AI gets better and the voice you can go literally one to one.
yeah. It's
It is
just
dangerous.
very
Yeah.
dangerous.
Um, in terms of voiceover,
Mhm.
who voiced over Living with Lincoln? Because that was like Ron Howard level voiceover. That was fantastic. The narration was fantastic.
That's our
Those are
father.
those are
He,
yeah.
what a fantastic
He's
voice.
gonna love to hear that because he was very insecure about. I mean, it was a
Really?
tons of readings. It was a hard.
Oh my
It's a
God.
hard thing to do, and he's. I love that he narrated. I think it's special for us.
It sounds so comforting. It sounds like, Ron Howard is narrating this.
It's cool. Every voice in that film was a descendant of the person they're depicting or involved. So, when it was Phil Kunhardt, our great great grandfather, we had our uncle Phil Kunhardt, who's a direct descendant. When it was a recording of one of the people that Dorothy, our great grandmother, visited in Springfield, it was that great great grandson that did the recording. So it was very purposeful casting who read for each voice.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
so cool. I love that. Um, it's so interesting to me that your storytelling lineage goes back, so many generations. I distinctly remember as a child at my grandparents' house, reading Pat the Bunny. You
Uh,
know, like this was a very like impactful moment because like you have all these warm feelings of being around your grandparents and everything, and you have this book which is very distinct and stands out. And it's so like when I realized that that came from y'all's family, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy because I have so many positive feelings towards that. And I had already known of your work with the Jim film. I was like, whoa, that's so crazy that it's intertwined.
it's the gift that keeps giving is what we say about Pat the Bunny. We love Pat the Bunny, and yeah, for anyone listening, it was written by our great 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 grandmother,
Oh,
eh, two greats,
great.
great great grandmother,
J-
and yeah, go
Just
for it. Whatever, whatever it was. Well, no, it was Peter's grandmother. Oh yeah, great grandmother. But by day she would write Pat the Bunny,
Yeah,
but at night she was a Lincoln historian. And
yeah,
at that time, women were not seen as scholars, historians, and so she would have to make her living and make her public persona as a children's book author. But her real passion and love was studying Abraham Lincoln,
yeah,
and as a way
yeah,
for her to get close to her father. It's a very unique little insight into the Lincoln world.
But to all those young parents who have babies, Pat the Bunny is still such an important book because it's the first touch and feel book. It's the first interactive book. You put your finger through Mummy's ring, you scratch Daddy's beard, it engages the senses of the baby. And Dorothy, to her credit, had studied so long how babies think,
Mhm.
how babies grow, that she knew that putting the sensory touch to the simple words was a good way for a parent to interact with the baby to interact with the book. It is a remarkable book to this day that still sells very well.
Yeah, I mean, talk about legs. I mean, it just kept going. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so blown away by that when I realized through living with Lincoln that was part of y'all's family. I was just like, that is hilarious. Um, yeah, I mean it's so incredible how a piece like that can ripple and affect so many children and then affect them in adulthood. It's like I guess the question I have for you guys as storytellers is, and what were the bedtime stories that your parents told you? Like as children, when you were being tucked in at night, do you remember distinctly any particular stories that sort of shaped your outlook?
I mean, we were read a lot of.
Stay in your room and shut up. No, that's what I tell my kids. Uh,
they they I mean, I remember being read a lot of Dorothy's books like Junket is Nice that we do a lot of Imaginative books. Our parents are big on imagination. Our mom's an artist and a
Hmm.
brilliant printer. She does like really cool things. She makes like print. She has a company called Printed Stuff, stamp stuff,
Damn stuff.
and she makes like baby pillows and blankets and big pillows and shirts. Teddy's wearing one. There you go. So it's really cool.
Nice.
And our family's all about arts and imagination. So things of that caliber and are what what I think about. I don't remember. It's funny when you look at what children's books were back when we were kids versus what we're now. Teddy and I both have two kids,
Hmm.
both about the same age as five, almost 5 and 7.
Hmm.
And I love reading them Dorothy's books. It's fun, but they're definitely a little off color sometimes, and they're definitely they didn't date so well. Some of them did, some did not do so well.
I think it's so interesting the way, especially with Living with Lincoln, how you were talking about the inheritance,
Mm,
like the physical inheritance of the archive, and how it was like physically hurting the people that were inheriting it. And I felt like that was a theme over and over again in a bunch of y'all's films, which was like the weight of almost like family expectations.
mm,
And um, I'm sure you guys probably experienced some of that, considering, the the spotlight that was on your father and on your great great grandmother. But how do you guys, I mean, obviously you've coped with it very well. Like here you are, you're doing it. You know what I mean? But how, I guess the question I have for you is, was that something that you guys remember addressing directly, or did it just take time and you got over it?
mm,
I don't think we're over it because, as George said, you're only as good as your last film. So
Mm-hmm.
we live in this constant fear and adrenaline that the next thing's got to be better than the next, and the next thing's got to be better than the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we lose that fear, we make a subpar product.
Mm. It's keeping you in
So
check.
yeah,
Okay.
so the stress in the neck is what keeps us going. Um,
no, I'm with you. I think there's the fear is important in our opinion. And that's something that we try and do two things. We try to be overly prepared for everything,
Mm-hmm.
but we also are never complacent. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that our dad's trying to instill in us. You never rest on your laurels. You never assume that things are going to pan out the way you think they're going to go. You don't think our last one was great, so this next one's gonna be great. No, you start from scratch every time. And something we've noticed is actually kind of interesting. When you look at a lot of our films, the makeup of the team are the core people are pretty much for the last 20 years or so are very similar from the
Mm-hmm.
director to the producers. There's always kind of one X factor, I like to say, like a different editor or a
Mm-hmm.
different producer or one or two different research. It's just there's a different component, and I feel like that spices it up and keeps a trusted team that we love and have a closeness with. Mind you, we're in like a random little town called Pleasantville, New York. It's upstate New York, an hour north of Manhattan. There's for the majority of production talents either out in LA or in the West Coast or in New York and Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too common to have a successful production company not in those hubs. I mean, there's outliers obviously across the country. So we try for our K Graham doc was one of the first films we've done that was physically edited out of our Pleasantville office. The majority of our team were all locally based out of Westchester and Pleasantville specifically. And we're trying to create this little team that we really like in-person working.
Mm-hmm.
COVID was great I mean, COVID sucked, but COVID was great in that we built a digital platform and digital infrastructure that allowed us to work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
But the best work comes when you're sitting around a table and
Yeah.
watch it with your editor, give real-time feedback, and everyone has a voice. I mean, when Teddy was saying earlier, lessons that our father instilled, another lesson is everyone on the team has a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just because you're an intern or a PA doesn't mean that you can't have your voice heard and widely respected. I mean, that's one thing that we pride ourselves on is yeah, the producers, the directors, the editors have a lot of say in the matter, but so does everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And one specific person I think of is she's now a producer. She was our archival producer. She's been here for years, Jill Cowan. She all of our films, they have a unique emotional lens and thematic lens that we put them through. but they also have the best archival, and they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we don't skimp on. We put a lot of time, effort, and resources into getting new, high res, beautiful, and usually, hopefully, unseen before archival.
Mm-hmm.
And when we find that, we then have a meeting and we say, how can we shape this moment around this? Let's not use it as wallpaper. Let's build something around it. So
Right.
I know this kind of took a very left turn from your question
Not at
about
all. Not at
Well,
all.
but
going back to the question, we're not naive to think that we are sitting here because of what our father built.
Mm.
I mean, he when we were kids, he would leave in the morning and then he'd come back at dinner time, and he put in, a full, and even before that, he would wake up when we were kids, he would wake up at, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning and get a few hours of quiet time in the kitchen
Mm.
working before he would even go to the office. So, we do have this pressure to honor and respect what he built and continue it on and not let it fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and he's instilled in us, and it's our core DNA is families first.
Okay.
And so we are Westchester based because I live 20 minutes from the office. Teddy and Peter live in the same town, 5 minutes from our office. Our families are here. Our work is here. We are home every night for dinner time. We're breakfast every morning. That's something our father did as kids when we were kids, and we do for our kid. We would
That's
never miss
amazing.
the dinner time. That's key. That's sacred for us.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of pressure in this industry to burn the midnight oil, work till 2 in the morning. It's like that. That's not sustainable. And
Right.
we've started, especially as of late in the last several years. I mean, we've had days that people have had to stay up late, but we try and everyone clock out at 6 p.m. at the latest. Don't stay up so late. Be fresh in the morning. Let's have a healthy work-life balance here because it's a tough industry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely noticed the quality of the archive. It was just like, oh my gosh, you guys are getting especially with the latest one I just watched, the Catherine Graham one. I was just like, wow, this is fantastic footage. Fantastic footage. And whoever's combing through that, I mean, you gave the name. I mean, total rock star. Like they really nailed it on the head. And what you were saying earlier about taking care of your crew. I always tell people like the cheapest thing you can do to make sure that your crew feels valued. Like in terms of like the entire film.
Mhm.
Like film is expensive, but like if you do a premium meal and they enjoy the meal and they feel sustained, like you're going to get the best work and they're going to feel valued and everything's going to run smoothly. I mean, that's key. I'm so glad you guys mentioned that because sometimes a lot of your characters in your docs, Catherine Graham included, they have this like self-doubt that I battle with all the time. It's like constant. It's like, am I doing this right? I have no idea what's happening. But it's so good to hear that you guys are doing similar things because it's like, okay, maybe I'm doing all right.
You're doing great, Rob.
We all struggle with self-doubt. That's what makes it so universal.
Right, right,
And what is this film the right subject we should be doing? Is it going to hit? Is it not going to hit?
right.
Are we doing it justice? You know, all of these thoughts go through our head every day.
Yeah, I
How do
mean,
you,
oh, sorry, go
no,
for it,
no, no,
Rob.
no, please.
I was gonna say part of what we love to focus on. We love focusing on childhood in our
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
We love focusing on the relationship of parents and the children.
Hmm.
Because Teddy and I work with our father, and we have a very close family relationship, so that's of personal interest. But it's also, as Teddy said, universal.
Hmm.
We're very interested in the concept of life and death. That's always
Hmm.
something that we try and make all of our films with a very emotional experience that anyone and everyone can relate to on some level. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to uh, be someone of the same uh, race, ethnicity, beliefs, whatever it is. It could be someone that you would think. I mean, a lot of people watch this. I on the surface don't have a lot in common with Catherine Graham. When you look
Hmm.
at it, older, very wealthy woman who's inherited this big fortune and all. But deep down, I have those insecurities that she
Hmm.
relates to. I have a lot of things and that's what we try and do. We try and put ourselves into those characters and see what can we attach ourselves to emotionally that we can then feel very honest telling these stories because I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just that's just how we kind of approach all of our subjects.
Well, yeah, no, it definitely works. It definitely resonates. And so keep doing that. Um, she's an incredible character. I did love what she had to say at the end, which was there's a statute of limitations for how much we can blame our parents for how we turned out. At some point you gotta like, own it. You gotta take responsibility. I
For
love
sure.
that. That was great. What an exceptional character. And to just, not back down in all those boardrooms and everything. It kind of reminded me of Network. I love that film, Sidney Lumet's Network.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, Jonas Mekas,
Hmm.
that film, Fragments of Paradise, unbelievably powerful. And he was another one. I mean, like he would, crying into his camera, talking about how it was the only friend he had and everything after he's like done this tremendous amount of incredible work.
That was
And
probably the rawest piece of footage we've ever seen and come across in all of our films.
so good.
Rob, you've
It's
done homework. Jeez, man. You've done
But that was another one where like we took it, we tried to shop it around, and everyone's like, a film on Jonas Mekas? Give me a break. No thanks. And we had to self-fund that one. We couldn't even fundraise for it. Nobody would fundraise, so we put our own money into it. And that one we took a huge ding
mm,
because uh it was when we started production on that when all these streamers were buying everything.
mm,
And we are like, oh my goodness, the Velvet Underground is on Apple. Like this is better than the Velvet Underground,
mhm,
and we'll have a this will sell.
mhm.
And then it got into Venice Film Festival, and then it got into Telluride, and then it got into Doc NYC. We're like, okay, this is great, and it didn't sell. It didn't.
Ah,
We could not sell it. We took a huge financial hit. Uh, Fortunately, we had enough production to not bankrupt us.
mhm, mhm.
But it was a wake up call of like, oh my God, you know, don't use your own money.
Oh no,
But
I
it's but
know.
but it's but having said all that, it's a film we're very proud of.
Hmm.
It's a very timely, important story of a refugee that came to America and contributed in amazing ways that has changed cinema forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, one of our
Absolutely.
missions with that film was on the surface, it's a avant-garde, the godfather of avant-garde filmmaking. And Teddy, Peter, and I kind of roll our eyes. We're like, that's not what we're not into avant-garde filmmaking per se. That just doesn't excite us or not our interest.
Hmm.
But our goal was to take this and make it universally uh, in a lack of better words, a commercial doc. And I don't mean that in a salacious way. I just mean it in a way that it's bigger than just that moment of his life. It was that he was a beautiful soul, a
Hmm.
beautiful artist, influenced millions of people and some of the most influential filmmakers and artists in the world. And that's what we wanted to capture in this story. And the director Katie Davison, our producer Elise Frenchman, it was a painstaking doc to make that put a labor of love that was really a cool doc. It's a very unique
Oh
one.
yeah.
The
No, but
music,
when Katie showed us that footage of Jonas
yeah,
talking to the camera, I mean, we were in right there. It was just
Yeah.
like this is so human,
yeah,
so raw, so um,
yeah.
amazing to have captured on film that we knew that it needed to be done.
And she didn't that came about halfway through the production. That was just them, the producer and director, combing through all his material and just say, "Wait, what is this? Why is he looking? What's hap? Oh my God!" And then they sent us a phone video of it from the lab, and everyone's just like, "That's it."
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, it's almost like, it's like David lamenting in the Psalms or Shakespeare, it's powerful stuff. It's just like you were saying, life and death. He's
Yeah,
battling with his mortality and he's just putting it all out there.
yeah.
I love it's it's so interesting to me how the the battle between commerce and art and everyone, people try to marry it all the time. It's a very complicated thing to do, but you know Paris, Texas, Raging Bull, all these films had influences from Jonas Mekas, and like that 8 millimeter sort of home video intro stuff is like probably some of the most powerful in those films. And it's just so interesting that, Jonas struggled at the, towards the ends there. And, but then, he spurred on so many other people that took what he was doing and made tons of money with it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Casey Neistat, but he's a YouTuber and he's made millions. And he literally took Jonas Mekas' style, like literally was in New York when he was doing his exhibit, took it, boom, applied it to YouTube and made millions. I'm talking like the 365 thing and everything,
Yeah.
like doing
Yeah.
it was wild, but it's just so interesting that the timing of something, like Jonas was maybe too early for the idea of documenting every little piece of your day or whatever it is.
It's like Andy Milonakis. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah.
I've
If
heard that
he
name
if
in a
he
while.
had Instagram or Twitter or whatever, he would have he would have gone down and hit. I still still find him hilarious, but if he had that, he was right before the cusp of the internet and YouTube and all that. So
Yeah. Yeah. The pre-internet virality was crazy. It's like when people told you, "Oh, you got to watch this." And when people would,
E-bombs world or whatever.
"Oh my gosh." Like the golden era of the internet. That was crazy.
Oh,
Crazy times. Um, but with Fragments of Paradise, it was just such an uplifting tribute. I often just take my camera out and just, snap whatever, only as a practice of like training my eye. But it was just such a beautiful way of showcasing somebody who was celebrating life. Like the beauty and the minutia, like just the little moments, little vignettes, like that portion where his daughter is playing with his granddaughter and she's just sitting there in the sunlight. And I was like, that's what it's about, is getting that right there so that like anybody in the world could watch that and understand what it's like to have a love for a grandchild,
yeah.
you know? That's
but that was the hard part for us, which is these fragments of paradise. It's worth watching the film because you get these beautiful glimpses of life. Yet people wouldn't press play because they didn't want to watch an avant-garde film, and we have to say
mm,
it's not an avant-garde film.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love when I can't remember the line per se, but when Fang Bui talks about how he loved cockroach as much as anything. Like it didn't matter what he was filming. He loves life. Jonas,
Yeah.
it could have been anything. It could have been him filming a cockroach. It could have been him filming his granddaughter. It was all love coming out of Jonas, and that's what we wanted to harness the power of love from him because he's such a joyful human being.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
feel it.
And I've noticed in a couple of your films, there's this like the toll of empathy, like these artists that you're dealing with. And also, I'm really curious as to like how you pick your subjects, but like they tend uh to be really impacted to a degree, almost like debilitating emotionally, by their observation of the things around them. Like with Jonas, it happened with your great great grandmother. Sorry, I don't know how many greats there are in there, but
One great.
yeah,
I'm pushing it.
yeah.
One
Go
great.
ahead.
Okay. Um, but yeah, there seems to be this reoccurring trend, and I was just wondering, like, is this something that you guys deal with also? Do you need to take breaks? Do you not have this issue at all? Are you separated? Are you distanced enough from it, or do you feel that like when you're embarking on your artistic journey that maybe it can impact you on an emotional, physical level?
Not to sound self-loathing, but we don't really get breaks because the way our business model works or the way the structure works is while we have to, in order to retain the staff you have to be
Mm,
churning out the next one and then the next one and then the next one.
mm,
So we're finishing a film right now, and while that's finishing, editorially locked. It'll go through, licensing and color and mix and all that stuff. All that's happening where we've been working on another film. So by the time that one's done with color and mix, we will have already turned to the next one.
Mm.
And it gets a little tiring, but it's part of what we signed up for.
Yeah, yeah, you signed up for this battle, so don't
Yeah,
run from it.
we try and take it a hair slower in the summer, especially August. We try and do family vacations up in Maine, so we get a little downtime. But a family vacation is still Peter, Teddy, and I sitting there but talking about. I mean, family dinners are still work meetings and talk, so it never fully escapes us, much to the chagrin of our wives and our mom and everyone else. But the the burnout's real. It's
Mm,
definitely real. It's a grind, but we're so passionate about what we're doing and we like it so much and we
mm,
love our team so much that they're hard days, but overall it's you you can't go at 100 miles an hour every day. So
mhm.
we really try, and we've gotten better at balancing how much we our foot on the gas before we kind of can not coast, but just take it slow enough. And as I said, we build out long production schedules, more as long as we can afford it. So the team has a real life outside of just work,
Mm.
but these things take a long time. They're,
Yeah,
they're hard, but I'll tell you, after Jim Foley, Brian, and the rest of it, everyone had a very emotional experience after that one.
yeah.
And we're working on one. I don't know how much I should disclose of it, Tay. What do you think?
So a little bit.
It's a fascinating film,
All
and
right.
the first person we've ever told about it, so you get a little exclusive here, Rob. It's a fabulous character, and she is a 87-year-old Holocaust survivor who talks about her traumatic experience and the lessons her mom instilled in her to surviving Auschwitz. But she's actually on TikTok and reaching a huge audience to talk about
Ah,
what she.
She's gotten 86 million views. I mean,
Yeah,
she's
a
so
phenomenal.
in a world of chaos and fart jokes and whatever other crap is on there,
mhm,
she's teaching them her stories of survival and actually making a difference.
And
And
she's
and it really attracted to us because those are the minds that you can mold to make a better person for the future. And she with her grandson's help have figured out how to reach that generation.
Yeah.
wow,
So
that's incredible.
that's the film we're locking this Friday, and then hope to go through the festival circuit starting this summer, and then get that one out there. It's a
But what we've been blessed with is so weird. What we have been fortunate enough, yeah. What we've been fortunate enough with our foundation is that we interview, uh, we get the raw interview first,
Mm,
and if the subject matter is so amazing, then we turn it into a film.
got
So
it.
we did this. George, you can tell the story about Tomiko.
Sure. We interviewed this woman, Tomiko Maramoto West. She was 92 at the time. When
Mm.
she was a little girl, 12, 13 years old, she was in a factory. She was at school in Hiroshima when the bomb went off.
Oh man.
Lost her entire family, experienced it firsthand. She sees the B-12 coming over, heading over Hiroshima, heard it,
Mhm,
saw the white flash, and just her life changed in an instant. She she hid in the caves outside of the village, came back down 3 days later and just saw the devastation.
mm,
And for years and years, for almost 50 years, she'd never told a soul about
right.
her experience. The film's called The Silent Witness, and we profiled her. We interviewed her just as a testimony, just to get her story preserved for the record. But
But
we
but as it was going
yeah,
on, I mean, right afterwards, George and I looked at each other and we're like, this
this is
this
it.
this can't just be an interview. This has got to be more.
So we stayed with her the whole day. We filmed with her. We filmed, scanned all her photo, anything she had from post experience later in life, and we brought the team on. We did a documentary, and we didn't have much expectations other than we just want to tell a beautiful portrait of Tomiko and her and what she went through. And it was our first short film, it was 18 minutes that came out of our foundation, Life Stories, and we premiered it at DC Docs Film Festival, then went to a couple other festivals, and we put it up on our YouTube channel without any fanfare, no publicity, no big marketing campaign, nothing. I mean, just a little nonprofit. And it organically took off. People were very moved by her, loved her story, and it ended up winning the best outstanding short documentary last year for the News and Doc Emmys. And it's just it was a refresh. That was one we're very proud of because it was just a refreshing thing. You didn't have to. We didn't do the Emmy campaign. We didn't have the
Yeah.
$500,000 budget to get this out. It was a little interview turned into a film that was really beautifully done and thoughtfully put out there. And then we've partnered with a handful of Japanese foundations and museums to get it to a wide range, especially in the Pacific West Coast. It had a very meaningful impact. That's kind of what we care about.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's wild. Um,
But that's one example of if we had pitched it to anyone, they
right.
would have said no, thank you.
Yeah.
And we don't have that obligation or that necessity to get the blessings of these streamers. We can just do it.
Right.
And it's sort of our ability to take back the power. I mean, we'll still work with streamers, don't get me wrong. We'll definitely partner and co-produce and go that route, but we also have the ability not to.
Right.
But
Right.
we're pretty untraditional in the sense that for years and years we did not go through the process. And again, we're very lucky in this, but a pitch deck with a sizzle reel and then meet with 30 different distributors. And it was more just trust that we will tell the story. We can bring the subject matter. One good example was when Senator John McCain was sick, and it came out in the New York Times that he was sick with glioblastoma. Teddy read the article and sent to Peter and myself, said, "This is who we should do a doc on." And within 3 weeks, we were out in Arizona, and Teddy.
Yeah, Peter sent it to Richard Plepler, said, "How about McCain?" And Richard wrote back, "I'm in." And we were down in Arizona, literally filming within 2.5 weeks of that.
Wow.
But that's the best case scenario. That doesn't obviously happen anytime or to anyone, but that's how it should be done in reality.
Right.
Richard and HBO trusted that we would be able to do the story. McCain and his team and his family trusted us. And it was just it was an accelerated timeline. It was a 7-month from the beginning of Greenlight to the airing, which has never happened with one of our films. But it was a very good experience in that sense. It's interesting. I was just listening to what was it, Mike White from White Lotus talk about his process and how the first season of White Lotus was done so quickly. And he goes, normally I take a year or 2 years to kind of develop an idea. And he goes, but for this, certain times an accelerated timeline brings out the best in certain cases, brings out new creative solutions, new ways to approach a doc or a film in this case, or a series. And it really translated for that one. Certain of our films never could have done on that kind of timeline, but it's unique when you look at that.
Are you ever, because you guys interview these very much larger than life, very massive personalities. Do you ever find yourself in scenarios where you're like, wow, this is like very surreal? Or is it just, at this point, is it just sort of like business as usual, not a big deal?
Always surreal for me. And I don't do many of the Teddy's the main interviewer for us, Teddy and Peter especially. But I'll tell you one quick story, and I'll let Teddy tell his perspective of it. When we interviewed, or Teddy did the interview for then VP, now known President Biden, it was crazy. He invited us to his house, and we go outside to kind of prep while the crew's setting up, and he's throwing a ball to his dog or hitting a golf ball to his dog, and it just talking to us so nicely. And then he walked us around. His wife baked us homemade cookies, and then he brought us to his fridge and said, "Help yourself," and then showed us his car. Like, it was so refreshing, and you're just so. I mean, you're on edge the whole time. You're sitting there.
Yeah.
The most powerful people in the world, but no, we always pinch ourselves. Like, that's one of the coolest parts of the job is getting to meet these people.
No, it's still surreal, and I had the same experience with George with former President Biden, but one of the highlights of my career was taking the fine cut down to the hospital in Arizona when Senator McCain was in hospice and being able to play it for him. and him grabbing my arm at the end and just said, "You did me proud, boy."
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Wow.
That
That
was what.
is, that's, yeah. I mean, they're entrusting you with their story, and that's like an incredible position to be placed in. So that's got to be, yeah.
Well, it's
Re-
interesting you said that, Rob. We did a doc. Do you know the name Brian Stevenson? And we did a film, True Justice. Brian Stevenson's
Yes,
fight.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Brian's amazing, and he's freed over 100 at the time of the film, over 135 men wrongfully committed to death row. He got them off death row,
Wow, wow.
changed the narrative of racism and racial injustice in this country on creating these a brilliant, beautiful museum down in Montgomery to talk about the narrative of racial injustice.
Yeah.
And Brian trusted us to tell his documentary after a long, many conversations. Took a long time to get that project going, and is a complicated film to make. Gets out there, and what he's most proud of, and what he loves the most about this film, is he is before we did the doc, he was on the road 200-300 days a year,
Mhm.
telling his story, telling what he walked. Now he can just send the film out.
Right, right.
And it's not this short change that people are doing. It's just he can now reach a huge audience and reach them in a different and his storytelling is so impactful. Nothing's better than hearing it from Brian
Right.
himself. He's just the best in every category you can imagine. I can't think of a person I'm more enamored with than Brian. But this it just allows it just it's another tool for people to be able to send out and get their story out, which it's just kind of part of the whole process of getting that people's more people connected and more people connected to the subject matter that we're trying to tell.
There's never going to be a replacement for one-on-one personal interaction, but if you watch a really good documentary and you have a pretty good idea of who that person is, it's pretty darn close. You have a pretty good concept of who that person is. For the longest time, I mean, I obviously still do have a great admiration for Dr. Cornell West, and I saw him on y'all's interviews, and I was like, because he's got this amazing stance, which is very like anti-war, and people are always trying to get him to like, oh, get on our side, no, get on our side. He's like, no, no, no. But I was always like, what would I say to Dr. Cornell West if I ever met him? And then I accidentally came across him at a Dunkin' Donuts in Houston, and I was like, and I was like, the best I could come up with was, "Can I please buy your donuts?" And that was it. I was like, it
Did he
was just,
accept?
oh yeah, it was great. It was like a highlight. It wasn't John McCain telling me that I did him good, but it was pretty darn close.
He besides just what he says being so interesting and so amazing, he was such a dynamic character on camera. He would always lean in and
Yes,
like
yes.
he was so passionate and so it's such a visceral experience. It's pretty striking.
He's one of the great, the
Yeah.
one, the
Well, it was also the day we were going to film him. There was a huge ice storm coming in Manhattan, and he came down on the train, and we're like, if we need to reschedule, it's okay. We can reschedule. And he's like, no, I'm coming. So
wow.
it was great.
Yeah, we filmed. It was the most epic snowstorm and ice storm in our history in New York. I want to say it was mid or late November 2018. I used to remember the date, November 20th or something. November 20th, 2018, if I remember correctly. And we filmed and it took me what normally takes it 45 minutes to get home, took me 6 hours to get home. Peter and Teddy that night couldn't even make it home because the streets were closed and couldn't get back.
They closed down the West Side Highway, so we ended up on my aunt's couch.
And but Cornel West took the train down, as I said, and then we got him a car, got it, and the car couldn't even make it to Grand Central. That then or to wherever he was going, so he got out of Grand Central and then trained all the way. It was he was the real deal. It's really
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love it. I love it when you meet your heroes and they're calm and down to earth and just like there's a presence there that
Oh
really.
yeah, but if we got off the record, we can tell you
and I was gonna say don't
about some of the heroes who we thought were heroes who were
Oh,
assholes.
oh yeah.
oh
That's
yeah
true.
there's some yeah
There's a reason why they say never meet your heroes, right?
exactly.
Um, well, I know you guys got to go. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I am so thankful that you guys joined me this morning. I really appreciate it. Um, I just request one person that
Please.
for you guys to make a documentary on because you guys do these amazing pieces on all these incredible journalists, and I was wondering if you would ever consider doing one on Seymour Hersh
Hmm.
because
I
He's
Great, great idea.
so
I
fascinating.
believe we tried to option his book once, um, and it was already taken.
We'll look into it, Rob. I like
We'll
your
look back
suggestion.
into it. I think he wrote a memoir a couple years ago, not too long ago,
Hmm.
and we looked into the rights and they were already taken. But we'll go back. He's I mean we're we're well aware of his story, and
Oh yeah.
it would be a fascinating doc.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do these amazing pieces on people who are just like with Catherine Graham. You know, she's just facing these massive oppression and just standing up to it. And I feel like he's one of those guys that just never back down. And it would just be really powerful with you guys at the helm.
Look, never backing down is one of our that's a important mantra for some of our
Yeah, his
projects.
book was called Reporter in 2018. I believe we looked into getting those rights, and someone had taken them, but it's been a while, so maybe
Yeah.
not.
He's 88 right now, so
We got.
maybe maybe it can work out.
Do you have a
Um
connection, Rob?
no, but I will figure it out. I'll make it
So,
But
happen.
again, this is how these things come about.
Yes.
We're at a dinner party. We're talking to you. We're talking to the neighbor.
we don't go to dinner parties.
We don't go. Well, I was thinking of Tamika. That came from a dinner party. But it, just random people who have said, you should talk to this person. You should interview this person. They've got a unique story, an interesting story, an important story,
Hmm.
and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Adding connections. It's if someone comes to us, like if you said I know Seymour Hirsch really well, you should talk to that. That rises to the level of let's take this seriously. That's something
Mhm.
new that we would bring to that comes to the table. So when Tomiko was brought to us, it was from
Mhm.
someone I know that said, I know this woman very well. I love your work. I can connect you if you're interested. So that becomes real versus us having to research the person. How are we going to get in touch with
Right.
them? But if you get someone to put you in the door or vouch for you, it
Oh,
elevates it.
Okay. All right. Well, got my homework.
Rob, we really enjoyed talking to you.
Oh
You're
man,
thoughtful. You've
you
done your
guys.
research. I
well, the
appreciate it.
timing's good because I'm being kicked out of the edit
Yeah,
room.
yeah. Day has been made. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really
Thank,
appreciate y'all. And I hope we get to do this again soon.
definitely.
We'll stay in touch on everything.
All right, y'all.
All right, Rob. Thanks so
Peace.
much, man.